Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Good morning, Dean. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good, thank you. Today we're going to talk about an article that was written by Eric Roberge, I believe his name is pronounced. He's with Forbes, or he wrote an article for Forbes. And the name of the article was Things That Will Help You Grow Your Wealth that Most People Won't Do. So good article. Tyler and I went through it. What we want to do is talk about that article, and we endorse those things that he's talking about because we see it every day with our client base. Very simple things that people can do. And if you create a habit doing some of these things or all of these things, you will find your wealth growing. It's much of it is a mindset or just some basic things that you need to create a habit with. So the first thing we're going to talk about is track spending and stick to a budget. This is a big one. We at Secure Retirement Solutions, as financial advisors, anytime we meet with a new person, we will tell them that we need to sit down and do a financial plan first. We need to look at their debt. We need to look at their savings history. We need to look at some of the retirement accounts. And part of the reason is it's very, very, very hard to make a recommendation with what we should do with their investments without knowing the whole picture. If you go to a financial advisor and you ask what you should do with your 401k, and the very first thing they say is, well, let's put it in this product or in this investment, it's probably the wrong thing to do. They don't know what your long-term goals are. They don't know if you want to use that money to live off of or have it as a legacy. So look at it from a standpoint of try to get together a financial plan. Look at a basic budget. We don't care how much money you have or how little money you have. A budget is a good thing to follow. We refer to it as a retirement roadmap. When you go look at your GPS when you're driving, chances are you look at it and you go wherever they tell you to go. You make it to that destination. Your financial plan should be the same thing. Put a financial plan in place that looks comfortable, follow it, and you're going to find out that you're going to do better from a standpoint of investing. You're going to watch your money better. You're going to know how finances work. Tyler, what other things should we talk about when you talk about track spending and sticking to a budget?
Yeah, Dean. So before I get into the tracking spending and sticking to a budget, with this very well-written article by Eric Roberge, 2018 Forbes article, this is what we do from time to time where we'll talk about an article online, break it down, and then add some of our thoughts to it. So that's also what we're going to be doing, kind of going through it one by one and then adding some of our own thoughts in with it. But as you said, Dean, the number one thing that will help you grow your wealth that most people won't do is super basic, but yet it's super important, and that's, as you said, tracking spending and sticking to a budget. And really, if you can't master your cash flow, you'll never increase your net worth. And what that is, again, cash flow is money in versus money out. You want to be positive throughout your working years and into retirement. And really, it's basic, but if you can start by tracking what you earn and what you spend each month, then after a few months, look back and see whether or not you're in the red, which would mean you have a negative cash flow, or in the green, which is a positive cash flow. Obviously, you want to be in the green, but that's not always the reality. So that's what it really comes down to is first you want to track your income, and it's hard to believe, but many people don't even know what they're making, what their take-home pay is compared to what they're spending. So start by tracking what your take-home pay is versus what your monthly expenses are. And there's many different ways to go about doing it. There's apps out there that you can easily download onto your phone. You can go online and print off a basic budget worksheet where it has all the different expenses that one would have, and you can simply go calculate and write in the monthly amount. So it's really easy to do so, but the hardest part is actually just sitting down and taking the time to do it. But in addition to that, if you live within your means each month, but just break even, then really you're still not doing it right, because you'll never be able to save or invest above that. And we hear about people all the time where they're just breaking even when they make a good to even a decent income, and that really shouldn't. Then you should be in the green. You should be making sure that you have enough to put money away, save and invest in different types of retirement accounts. So again, you want to make sure that you're not only but that you're in the green, that you have positive cash flow. So then with that, you can use that for multiple different things, that being invest in and save for retirement. But there's a number of other things that you can use that. So again, get a budget tool or app even on your phone to help track expenses and see how much each month you have in positive cash flow. And then once you do that, once you do get that number into the green when you're tracking your budget, you can use that for a number of different things, like bulking up your emergency funds. Maybe you don't have a lot in checking or savings. You can put that extra money into checking and savings, bulk that up. We like to see that go towards paying down debt is another huge thing. Then after your emergency fund is there, after your debt's paid off, then you can invest that in retirement accounts, or you can do a little bit of each. If you do really lock in and get your budget taken care of to the point where you are earning more money than you spend each month, you can use the positive cash flow that you have coming in to bulk up your savings, pay down debt, and invest in retirement accounts.
Okay, and Tyler brought up the fact that you can find an app. If you don't feel comfortable with that, give us a buzz. We'd be more than happy to sit down with you and create a financial plan. They're complimentary. There's no fee to them. It'll give you a roadmap that you can use for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life, which is very important. Now, when people ask what is the best time to create a budget or a financial plan, any time is good. But if you were to look at the optimum time, it would probably be in your early to mid 50s, because you still have some working years ahead of you, and yet you still have enough time to make some positive changes. If you make some changes through your 50s, it could set you up very well in your 60s, 70s, and 80s compared to not having a financial plan at all. But really, it comes down to when you present a financial plan, one of two things will happen. People are very satisfied with the amount of income they're going to be able to take in retirement. That's good. You did the hard work. Or people are going to be disappointed that this is how much money they have in retirement. So there's some work to do. But understand that it really comes down to two things. A lot of other things can fall into these 2 points. And that is, in retirement, one of two things have to happen in order to have a more comfortable retirement income. And that is, you either need to make more money or you need to cut expenses. So in retirement, chances are you really don't want to work more, so you're probably not going to be making more money. Therefore, cutting expenses before you get to retirement is key. As Tyler insinuated, we want to reduce those expenses. You want to try to have your house paid off before you get into retirement. That should be a main goal. You should look at replacing vehicles before you get into retirement for that first time. You might replace them later on in life, but try to look at your 50s to accumulate as much as you can through your working years, because they're typically the years that you make the most amount of money in payroll. But you should also be paying more aggressively to pay down your debt prior to retirement.
Very good point there, Dean. All right, now another thing that will help you grow your wealth that most people won't do, and this one we do see quite a bit of people in our area doing it, or at least trying to do it, but it would be saving and investing a large percentage of your income. So there's really two things that help build wealth. It's compound interest and time. Those are the two keys that help you build your wealth, compounding interest over time. And if you want to live a comfortable retirement, it's recommended, generally speaking, many financial planners, they'll say put away about 10 to 15% of your gross income in various retirement accounts. We recommend that 15% number just to be safe. Usually people who put away 15% of their gross income are going to be set for retirement. However, in the article, it goes on to say that that number can be increased all the way up to 20 to 30%, depending on what you want to do and when you want to retire. And what it goes on to highlight is it says that there's many people out there who either want to retire early. That's one of the main ones. So if you want to retire at 50 years old or 45 years old, 55 years old, if that's the case, then instead of putting away 10 to 15%, you're probably going to feel more comfortable by putting away 20 to 30% in your younger years when you're working. So you might have to sacrifice a little bit more when you're younger by having less take-home pay and putting away more. But in return for doing that, that will allow you to possibly retire early. Or people who want to do extensive travel. There are some people who retire and they want to completely get on the map and travel all the time. That costs money. So if that's the case as well, then maybe going toward that 20 to 30% recommendation is going to be more beneficial for you. Or there's some people that also want to try and start their own business or kind of go down the entrepreneurship road when they're retired, and that's another reason to go to the 20 to 30% recommendation too.
Okay, Tyler, I just wanted to throw something in there. You talk about 20 to 30%. Many times people will ask us, okay, does that mean 20 to 30% in investments or into 401ks or 403bs? That means wealth accumulation. It can be cash positions, it can be CDs, it can be your 401k, it can be an independent IRA, any combination of savings and or investments. As you get older, you can move around some of that money to make it more wealth generating. But the idea is just to create a habit to start saving 20 to 30% if you want to retire early or have a larger nest egg when you do retire.
Yeah, really good point there, Dean. And in addition to that, it's important to know what your goals are early enough, because again, if you're a couple, you're married, you're each 35 years old, you make $100,000 in combined income, and you've been putting away 5% of your payroll per year, and you want to retire at 50 years old, it's probably not going to work. So it's important to know what you want to do. If you do want to retire early, then you need to be putting away a good chunk early enough to make that happen. So again, it's important to realize what your goals are, and then from there, you can determine how much to put away. Generally speaking, we recommend 15%. But again, if you do want to do extensive travel, retire early, or possibly start your own business or something along those lines, then you might have to bump that number up to 20 to 30%. Now, investing a large percentage of your income, I tell people it's only half the battle, because the other half is knowing which types of accounts to invest in and also which types of investments to hold within those accounts. So you can put away 15% of your income in various retirement accounts each and every year, but if you're not holding investments that are in line with your goals, then it's not going to work out how you had hoped or planned. And what I mean by that is usually people who want to save for retirement, we really like Roth accounts. Again, with a Roth IRA or even a Roth 401k, if your employer offers it, that's money where you invest in there, you put the money in there, and then that grows tax-free until retirement. So again, we think Roth accounts are really beneficial, and non-qualified or non-retirement accounts can also be used, and they're recommended especially for people who want to retire early, because your 401k through work, your Roth accounts, a traditional IRA, your 403b, whatever the case may be, whichever retirement account you have out there, you've got to wait until you're 59 and a half years old to start taking money out. So again, if you do want to retire early, then you're going to want a non-qualified or non-retirement account to plan for that you can take money from before you hit that 59 and a half age mark. Now, within the Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, and non-qualified accounts, investing in individual stocks, growth stock ETFs, and mutual funds over the long term, it can prove beneficial. But again, what you invest in really determines on where you're at, your goals, your age, your time horizon, risk tolerance. Again, usually if you're younger, you're going to want to put your money into things that are more growth oriented, a little bit more aggressive. And as you get older, you want to scale back that risk over time. But I do just have a couple examples here that shows how much compounding interest can help over time. So the first example is if you were to invest $10,000 now, so just write a check out and put $10,000 into an account, let it grow for 30 years without touching it. Now, if you average a 3% rate of return per year, so 3%, that might be various bond positions, even something safe or fixed like CDs, something that's pretty conservative. You might average a 3% rate of return over 30 years. then that $10,000 will grow to $24,273. So again, if you invest $10,000, now let it grow for 30 years and average a 3% rate of return. After 30 years, that $10,000 will be $24,000. Now, if you were to invest that same $10,000 and let it grow for 30 years without touching it, but instead of averaging a 3% rate of return per year, you average an 8% rate of return per year. And the reason why I bring up 8% is just because if you go all the way back to the 1920s, the S&P 500, the U.S. stock market, has averaged about a 10% rate of return per year. But if you factor in inflation, that real number is closer to 7 to 8%. So again, I'm going to use 8%, but $10,000 over 30 years, averaging 8%, you'd have just over $100,000. So again, you can see the difference. 3% over 30 years on 10,000 is $24,000 is what you'd have. Whereas if you average 8% over 30 years on a $10,000 investment, you'd have over $100,000. So again, time and compounding interest are huge factors. That example there kind of illustrates it. But again, saving and investing a large percentage of your income is something that will definitely help grow your wealth over time.
Okay, before we continue, we're going to take a quick break.
You're listening to Dean and Tyler Listle, investment advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions located on Allied Street in Green Bay. For a complimentary review of your current investments, or if you have questions, please call them at 920-347-9888 or go to their website at srsplans.com.
Okay, the next topic we want to talk about is holding wealth and assets, not stuff. This is one we see an awful lot. As you will see certain people, they want to have every toy imaginable while they're working, which is fine. You do have to reward yourself for working hard. We do understand that. You have to go out to eat, do the things that you want to do. If you get into a situation where you want to put away 20 to 30% of your earnings into investments, but yet you cut yourself out of some of those creature comforts, sometimes it gets a little tenuous. So we do understand there's a happy medium, but we do see the extreme quite often. And we will hear people say, well, I didn't put a lot of money away while I was working because I invested in my house. Okay, well, let's go back and look at that for a minute. First of all, a home that is paid off is a wonderful asset. It's an appreciable asset. In your lifetime, it should grow unless there's something really wrong with the house or the neighborhood, something that is extenuating as far as circumstances. But a house is a good investment. A house is not a good investment when you owe on it going into retirement and then you put additional monies into it, remodeling and everything else that needs to be done. Now it becomes a money pit. Okay? So we do like property. We like real estate as an investment. But again, done correctly. We typically like to see a home paid off before retirement. Doesn't always happen that way. But if you're carrying a mortgage that you're paying $500, $600, or $700 on in retirement and you have enough funds, that's fine. But again, let's look at things. The other thing too is, I'll bring up a story of somebody we met with about 3-4 years ago, and he retired with about $70,000 or $80,000 in a 401k. So what we needed to do is make sure we stretch that money out long enough in addition to his Social Security. Well, between the time that he was looking to retire and our next meeting to discuss about a financial plan, he promptly went out and bought a $60,000 truck. So mathematically, those things just do not work. Unfortunately, he's probably living in the truck right now. You have to look at those things. So what we do is believe in holding wealth and assets, appreciable assets, not stuff which is depreciable assets. Tyler, what else before I go off on a tangent here?
Yeah, good points there, Dean. And like you said, it's important to note that having stuff isn't bad in any way. You got to reward yourself over time. But what we see is there's many people that they might have flashy cars, big houses with even bigger mortgages, and different forms of debt out there, when here they don't have their base built and they don't have money that they're putting away for retirement so they can actually enjoy those things. Now, like you said, Dean, having a house actually is an appreciable asset. It's a good thing to have, but where people go wrong is they will purchase a big house with an even bigger mortgage. And what I mean by that is they have a house that they're never going to pay off. they're always going to be stuck with that mortgage, and it weighs on them over time, and then they might make a bad financial decision, where we see plenty of people that they want to take a large withdrawal from their 401k or their IRA in retirement to pay off their mortgage, and it completely destroys their whole financial plan. So again, if you do have a house with a mortgage on it, you want to make sure you have a plan to have that paid off. And the rule of thumb that I find very good is you don't want to have any more than 25% of your take-home pay go toward your mortgage. If you have more than that, if 50% of your take-home pay is going toward your mortgage, you're going to have to cut yourself thin in other places. So that's kind of a rule of thumb to live by. But again, there's people that have high incomes and that money gets spent and not invested, and that's where people go wrong. What you want to do is you want to invest that first, and you need to focus on growing your wealth, not spending your wealth. And as I said earlier, it is nice to have, or it's good to have nice things, but only after you have all your debt paid off and you're investing your 10 to 15% in various retirement accounts first, before you go out and buy that nice car or upgrade to a really big house with a big mortgage. You want to make sure first off that you have all your other smaller debts paid off and that you are contributing to your retirement accounts before you decide to hold wealth in stuff as opposed to assets. The other thing, many of the wealthiest people in this world, they hold their wealth in properties, stock market investments, and various business interests as opposed to cars and different things of that nature. So keep that in mind as well. But ultimately, holding wealth in assets and not stuff is a big thing over the long term that will allow you to grow your wealth.
Okay, in addition to that, remember, when you're looking at holding wealth and assets, we believe in diversification. If you go talk to a financial advisor and the only thing they recommend for your wealth is stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, chances are you need a new financial advisor, because there are wonderful opportunities not only in those, but in properties and business interests. You should be looking at that. If the market goes down, stock market goes down, chances are everything in the market is going to be going down at that particular time. So being diversified outside, also insurance products too can work here. But if you're diversified outside of the stock market to a certain extent, you're creating a hedge or a buffer against some of that stock market risk. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is accepting risk, since we brought up risk. That word typically scares most people when it comes to investing, when you hear the word risk. But understand, in very general terms, risk typically equals reward, and safety typically equals low returns. Now, that doesn't mean that risk versus reward is good or bad. That doesn't mean safety equaling lower returns is good or bad. You need to have both of them. As a matter of fact, we believe in the 3-bucket approach to your retirement funds, which is safety, income, and growth. You should have something in all of those buckets. But when it comes to accepting risk, people tend to be riskier with their investments while they're working. And then as they get older, they become more conservative, which is fine. And also, you heard, if you listen to our show, I say that conservative does not always equal safe. So understand that. But the thing is, if you get too safe with your investments towards the end of your working career, chances are you're not going to receive enough growth to keep you satisfied from an income standpoint for the rest of your life. There's a word called inflation. That is going to come into play, and it's going to erode some of those safe havens. So what you want to do is you want to have safety, income, and growth, not necessarily proportionate, but all of those buckets, those 3 buckets, need to have something in them when it comes to your retirement funds.
Really good points, Dean. But yeah, this is one that some people don't even think about, but it's a major thing that will help you grow your wealth, and it's accepting risk. Because again, any investment in the market comes with some degree of risk. And there are people out there, there are clients that we have who refuse to take any risks with their money. But the only issue with that is you have to take some degree of risk if you want to earn a reasonable rate of return on your money in today's market environment. Now, people might argue and say, well, wealthy people, they can afford to take more risks in the stock market because they have a large chunk of money to fall back on if they were to lose money, which that is true. But many wealthy people got to that place, got there in the first place by accepting risk and investing in those stocks, mutual funds, or exchange traded funds from the start. So keep that in mind. But again, I mentioned this earlier, and if you go all the way back to the 1920s, The stock market is average about a 10% rate of return per year. And if you factor in inflation, that number is closer to a 7 to 8% rate of return with inflation factored in. So that tells me that historically, the stock market does tend to go up, and investing anything in the market, you are taking on risk and you have to accept that. But the stock market going up over the long term definitely doesn't come without short-term fluctuations. I mean, right now we're coming up in almost mid 2019 here, and the market's been doing well in 2019, but just at the end of 2018, it went down almost 20% in 3 months. So there's going to be big-time short-term fluctuations, but if you're in it for the long term and you can accept that risk, history says that over the long term, it tends to go up. The market tends to go up. So again, like you said too, Dean, not to mention that sitting in cash will also come with the risk of losing purchasing power due to inflation. It comes with the opportunity cost of being out of the market and not being able to save enough cash on your own to meet your goals. And what I mean by that is you need your money to work for you. And if it's not working for you, then what's it doing? It's lagging behind, and you might not get what you need to retire early or to travel. You might not get what you had budgeted for. So really, things that will help you grow your wealth, accepting risk is a big one, and you want to make sure that you're allocated properly, where you can have some money in cash and properties and safe money, other money in the stock market, and if you're well diversified and can accept that risk, over the long term, you'll tend to do pretty well.
Okay, the last one we're going to talk about in our close here is paying attention to the little things. This is very important. It's things such as making sure you prioritize your goals, put together a financial plan. It doesn't take that long. Have somebody do it. Meet with a financial professional. They'll help you with it. Look at your investments. Question certain things. Is this a good hold here? It hasn't been doing well for a while. There might be a reason. Setting up processes like making sure your contributions are going automatically into your investments and things like that. So you want to have some procedures in place. Takes a couple of minutes to put in place. It can help you in the long run. Tyler, what else as far as some of the little things that we should look at?
Dean, just really paying attention to the little things, basic things, some that I've already covered, like simply setting up a simple budget so that way you know what to spend your money on and what to stay away from. You have to prioritize your goals. Setting up basic financial plans, opening statements. You wouldn't believe how many people don't even open their monthly or their quarterly statements. They don't look at it for a number of years. And here, when they do open it, they find out for 5 years they weren't invested correctly, and that's 5 years right there that they can't get back. So even basic things like paying attention to where your investments are is a main thing. And then setting up your contributions automatically, out of sight, out of mind. That way it's automatic. It's going to be there. You're going to contribute for retirement without even really knowing it. And then lastly is asking questions. Many of our clients do a great job at that, but we tell this to people all the time. The more you know about your money, the more comfortable you're going to feel. So you get that way by asking questions, but really paying attention to the little things is what many people who've accumulated wealth, they've gotten right, and they've done it over again and again and again. So that's another thing you want to do that many people overlook. Pay attention to the little things. Okay, that's all the time we have this week. See you later, and hope you'll join us again next week. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them at Secure Retirement Solutions on Allied Street in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.